Trump was a vessel. Trump branded himself in 2024 as the vengeance of MAGA and America First and mass deportations. In reality, he was the regime candidate. He was the candidate of Wall Street and Silicon Valley, of Israeli intelligence, of the Jewish oligarchs, of the World Jewish Congress. And ultimately, he is sort of an inconvenience. He is a vessel. He is a booster rocket. The payload is Vance. Vance was an artificial creation of Peter Thiel, of Elon Musk, of David Sachs, of the CIA, the American Enterprise Institute, of Netflix and CNN. And in 2028 or before, when he is crowned the president, he is going to bring the New World Order to the fore.
Hey guys, we're going to get into an older clip by Nick Fuentes. He's going to light up Donald Trump and J.D. Vance and really how ridiculous it is to even think that these are the monkeys in charge of the circus. He's going to go on then to expose the realpolitik and the hidden power networks that put up these proxy individuals, these politicians, to implement the policies that are truly being determined behind closed doors by unelected officials such as the Bilderberg Group, the World Economic Forum, the quiet meetings of the Bank of International Settlements. Nick is going to name names, and in this clip, he's going to get into the layer of the intelligence community. It's a pretty fire clip, and it's just as relevant today as it was 3 months ago. So let's go ahead and we'll get right into it.
And I'm going to let you in on a little inside baseball. It's not going to take you long to look for this stuff. 15 years ago, 20 years ago, Bibi Netanyahu and the Israeli intelligence, they're recruiting Israelis out of high school and college. They enlist them in Unit 8200, their intelligence outfit, and they sent them to America to start tech startups. Do you know this? There was a major initiative in the 2000s and the 2010s. The Israeli cyber intelligence outfit was recruiting young Israelis and sending them as intelligence officers, as spies, to create startups in America, to create tech startups in Silicon Valley.
Challenge accepted. We'll keep this simple. I'm going to back up and augment the claim that Nick just made. I'm going to give you a list of 20 individuals, and each individual I will include the role that they had within the IDF or Unit 8200, and I will include the company that they started, as well as just a brief description of the impact their role had on the development of our digital technology systems. We'll begin with 4 high net worth individuals who are global platform innovators. The first man on our list is Gil Schwed, and he was in signals intelligence and cryptography in Unit 8200. He then went on to co-found Checkpoint, which pioneered modern firewall architecture. Number 2, Nadav Zafrir. His Unit 8200 role is that of a commander in elite cyber leadership. He then becomes the CEO of Checkpoint and helps to institutionalize intelligence-grade security at global scale. Next, we've got Shalev Julio. He was in cyber operations at Unit 8200. He co-founded the NSO group. His impact is to commercialize offensive cyber tools. Next, Omri Levy was in technical intelligence in Unit 8200, also a co-founder of the NSO group, and he helped scale intelligence-derived exploits into sovereign-grade products. So think of penetrating an enemy's intel systems. Well, how then do you sell that information effectively to another nation state? And you start to see this guy's role. Next, we'll look at some of the hands-on builders of these systems who are just kind of unicorns. They don't necessarily have a high net worth, but their human capital in terms of their intelligence and the novelty of what they developed, that's what makes these guys relevant. We've got Nir Zuk, NirZuk. He was in cyber intelligence in Unit 8200. He is the founder and CTO of Palo Alto Networks, also working on next generation firewall products, as well as zero trust paradigms. So think of the Byzantine general's dilemma and cryptography. We've got Asaf Rappaport. He was an elite cyber officer in Unit 8200. He was the founder of Wiz, W-I-Z, which is one of the fastest growing cloud security platforms globally at a multi-billion-dollar valuation. Next, we've got Roy Resnick. He was in cyber engineering for Unit 8200. He is a co-founder of Wiz. Roy Resnick works on cloud scale vulnerability mapping. So think of cloud scale data hosting. This guy is going to look for attack surfaces on the infrastructure of that cloud architecture and try to figure out ways that you can penetrate the security and access the sensitive data of targets held within those cloud storage systems. This would include things such as your encrypted messages, encrypted email systems, every digital communication that you make that you feel is safe and protected. This guy is looking for ways to break through the security of those systems for exploitation purposes. Consider the goal of the Jeffrey Epstein blackmail operation and understand that that same exact goal has now been achieved through penetration at the base levels of your digital technology systems that you rely on every single day. Not only that, but you paid for this. These companies are also funded by CIA's investment capital arm, Inquitel. So foreign agents are brought in using your money. May remind you of USAID a little bit. They are then trained in your schools, which you are also paying for if you look into the endowment systems, and then they take the skills that they learn and subsequently use those skills to destroy your national sovereignty, the sovereignty of all of your leaders, the sovereignty of all of our citizens, all of us. We are paying for our own demise, and this is the true output of your taxes. So as long as those taxes continue to be paid, this is where the benefits from your taxation will accrue. And I mentioned USA because I want you to notice the structural similarities between the left and the right. The only real differences between the left and the right are superficial. Underneath all of the superficial responses to these political factions, the structural responses are exactly the same. Costs come to the same parties and the benefits accrue to the same parties. And the beneficiary is a nation state in Levant, which you are not allowed to criticize. But let's get back to the task at hand. We're really just getting to the good part of this list. We will get back into it with Yinon Kostica. He's in intelligence systems at Unit 8200, another co-founder of Wiz. Yinon Kostica works on cloud risk abstraction. So this guy is modeling cloud data infrastructure at a systems level and asking questions such as, okay, if this identity is compromised, what class of outcomes becomes possible? So he is modeling systems and simulating outcomes using counterfactual scenarios, classic intelligence lineage behavior, all the way at the ground floor of this technological development. Next, we'll move on to Gil Elbaz. He was an intelligence technologist, and he specializes in application layer traffic control at internet scale. So think of algorithmic shadow banning, but even larger. This is one of the people who pioneers the actual architecture by which that process takes place. Next, we've got Ami Lutwak. His Unit 8200 role is in security intelligence, and he is a co-founder of CyberArk. He's going to work with identity and privilege security backbone. So think of those backdoors in WhatsApp, for example, or why they were so upset with the founder of Telegram when he wouldn't provide them with a backdoor. Next, we've got another CyberArk CEO whose Unit 8200 background is in intelligence. This is Uday Makati, and his impact is to scale up a lot of the work that CyberArk is doing with those backdoors. Next, we're going to look at the pioneers in data, ad tech, and platform monetization. And there's two guys here we'll look at. Adam Singolba, he is an intelligence analyst at Unit 8200. And then he's going to found a company called Taboola. His focus is behavioral targeting, again, at a very large scale. Second, we've got Ori Lahav. He's working in intelligence systems at Unit 8200. He's going to co-found a company called Outbrain, which works on algorithmic attention routing. So think about those YouTube videos that talk about how bad it is for your brain to just be scrolling all day long. Andrew Huberman talking about how it influences your dopamine schedule, brain rot in general, and then understand that brain rot isn't something that just happened accidentally. It was created intentionally, and not just for the purpose of monetization, but for the purpose of ideological infiltration, ideological embedding. These people understand your neurology, and they are using technology to manipulate neurological pathways that are beyond your conscious control. And they're not Americans, they're foreign operatives Now let's touch base on 3 individuals who work in surveillance, vision, and specialized cyber capabilities. Think of those autonomous robots that are being increasingly used by our military and very soon will be used by our domestic police force as well. If you don't remember during the pandemic that they were already putting Spot Mini out in the streets as a surveillance mechanism, you might want to go look that up. When you think of robotics and actual traditional kinetic enforcement and coercion, this is where these guys are going to come in. So we've got Matanya Horowitz. His role is in intelligence R&D in Unit 8200, and he's going to co-found a company called Mobileye. And his impact is to pioneer machine vision, which is then embedded in the global vehicles. So the way that robot dog is going to see you before it pulls the trigger, you can thank this guy for that moment. Next, we've got Ziv Avaram. He is an intelligence technologist in Unit 8200, a Mobileye co-founder, and again, working in sensor fusion, predictive modeling. So predictive modeling, your brain uses predictive encoding just for your senses to function at all. Every time you pick up a cup, every time you walk down the street, walk down a set of stairs, you're using a process called predictive encoding that uses past experiences to model the likelihood of future outcomes based on current behavioral actions and environmental conditions. So when the robot dog decides to pull the trigger instead of stand down, it's because you violated some aspect of its predictive modeling protocol that made it decide you were a legitimate target. And this is the guy who trained it to make that decision. A bit more nebulous would be Yossi Carmiel. He is in intelligence leadership in Unit 8200. He is now the senior executive at Verint, V-E-R-I-N-T, and he's there to work on intelligence analytics for enterprise and for government, so for the private sector and for the state. Next, we're going to look at 4 individuals who aren't so much directly involved in tech development, but are key nodes in terms of transmitting human capital and ideas from Unit 8200 into financial capital in Silicon Valley. So these people who I mentioned previously, the ones doing the hands-on work, the manner in which they find their way into these institutions in Silicon Valley and these tech startups in the first place, that happens through more of the money side of things. The capital networks, angel investors, people who have social and business connections that span not just the United States and Israel, but globally. So we're actually looking at the upper tier nodes that help organize this system of tech penetration in the United States now. So the first of these 4 is Yaron Samid. He is an intelligence officer from Unit 8200. He then becomes an angel investor in multiple cyber startups. So you can think of his function as essentially routing capital along alumni lines in both Silicon Valley and Unit 8200 operatives. Next, we've got Gigi Levy-Weiss, intelligence background from Unit 8200, a partner in NFX. And Gigi is going to play a role as a supplementary investor that amplifies the pre-existing network connections. So maybe your own helps connect the initial investors with the intelligence officers. Gigi is going to come in and back them up with matching funds after they start their company and help multiply their influence through additional capital allocation. Now we're going to look at someone who's a bit more cross-domain between government and enterprise, and this is Lior Prosser, who comes from an intelligence-adjacent background in Unit 8200, but is going to serve as a diplomatic and tech ecosystem bridge, essentially. So this guy's role is going to be more along the lines of a state-to-startup sort of soft power conduit. He's going to work a little bit more on the state side of things and making sure that all the bureaucratic steps are taken to facilitate this process. All the forms are signed in triplicate, the I's are dotted, and the T's are crossed, if you will, on the paperwork. Finally, we'll look at Errol Margalit. I don't even know if I'm saying that name right, but it's ERELMARGALIT with intelligence-linked networks to Unit 8200. This person is the founder of Jerusalem Venture Partners, which essentially just takes these U.S.-Israeli sort of tech capital flows and just institutionalizes them. It codifies them into the structure of an institution. And that is a short list with merely a cursory attempt at research. So Nick is right. It doesn't take very long to figure out what these connections are. And it's on you. If you want to have personal sovereignty, you are a fool to think that you do not live downstream of the reality of Darwinian fitness and Darwinian game theory conditions, which means that someone will always try to take what is yours. If you cannot be better and more fit than that person in a Darwinian sense, your nice things will be taken from you, whether you like that truth or not. This is just a quick glance at the level of penetration that a foreign nation state has achieved at our expense in the United States. It really goes to show that if you think we're a nation under attack right now, you're about 100 years behind the times. We were attacked around the turn of the 20th century, so the late 1800s and early 1900s. We lost that war, and this is the completion of the conquest. So you're not fighting an invader that's at the gates. You're fighting an invader that's already broken into your city and taken over every aspect of the structural power.
They're all over this stuff. And, you know, a lot of them are Jewish. Joe Lonsdale, Sean McGuire, Jacob Hellberg. These guys are all very pro-Israel, very Jewish, very powerful in Silicon Valley. And probably they're involved in some kind of spy ring that's being run out of Stanford, that's being run out of Silicon Valley. Israel has completely penetrated Silicon Valley. You do not understand this. Israel and Israeli intelligence has totally penetrated Silicon Valley. Sean McGuire, who seems like a nice guy, but he's a board member at Sequoia. Sequoia is one of the top venture capital firms. That means they provide the startup capital for all of these super powerful and big Silicon Valley startups that became powerful and big. Sean McGuire has an Israeli wife and Israeli kids and is a super Zionist on Twitter. Jacob Hellberg was the right-hand man to some of the most powerful people in tech, to Alex Karp, to Keith Raboy, who's at Facebook. Jacob Hellberg gave a huge contribution to Trump last year. He's all over the pro-Israel cause. These are just a couple of examples. Silicon Valley from top to bottom is penetrated by Israeli intelligence. And guess what else? Where does Silicon Valley recruit from? Where does Silicon Valley have its research labs? Well, schools like Stanford, Columbia, Harvard, Yale. The Ivy League universities, almost all of them now have Jewish presidents. Some of them, like Columbia, 25% of the student body is Jewish. And what is the White House trying to do right now? They're bringing in the Department of Education to force universities like Harvard and Columbia to police anti-Semitism, to teach pro-Israel curriculum in their Middle East Studies department. Silicon Valley is in bed with academia. The White House is punishing academia for not being Jewish and pro-Israel enough. And Silicon Valley is infiltrated by Israel. And what else does Silicon Valley and the universities do? Silicon Valley gets enormous contracts from the U.S. intelligence agencies, from the CIA, from the NSA, from federal law enforcement. And the research universities, the labs at MIT, at the Ivy League schools, they get contracts. They do the research too. And increasingly, they're doing this for the military as well. What do you think SpaceX does? What's the market for satellites? A big application of SpaceX satellites, you know, the rocket launches that put satellites in the atmosphere, is the Department of Defense putting our Star Shield into outer space. Palantir is now one of the top 10 most valuable tech companies. They exclusively contract with intelligence and law enforcement agencies. And the list goes on and on like this. And what is Wall Street comprised of? What are the biggest performers? What are the most valuable companies on the S&P 500? Traded on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. Just take a look. It's Amazon, Apple, Microsoft, Google, Alphabet, Meta. It's the tech companies. So, and by the way, who runs BlackRock? Larry Fink, who is now being put in charge of the World Economic Forum. Larry Fink is a pro-Israel Jew who's tight with Bill Ackman, who's a Jewish hedge fund manager that supported Trump and got the president of Harvard fired. Silicon Valley on the West Coast the Ivy Leagues in the Northeast, Wall Street in New York City, and increasingly in Miami. And the government contracts coming out of Virginia, coming out of Northern Virginia and Washington, D.C., they're all in bed like this. They're all inextricably connected. When we say the elite, when we say the deep state, that's what we're referring to. That is your elite society. And J.D. Vance is at the intersection of all of it. You know, Trump, when he ran in 2024, he got $270 million from Elon Musk, Silicon Valley. He got $200 million from Tim Mellon, a banker. He got $100 and some million from Miriam Adelson, Israel lobby. He got millions from Bill Ackman, Wall Street, millions from Jacob Hellberg, Silicon Valley. Trump is the elite's candidate. Trump was the elite's candidate, and the elite is Jewish oligarchs. Israeli intelligence penetrated Jewish oligarchy from top to bottom. From BlackRock with Larry Fink and the hedge funds, which are all controlled by Jews, to the Ivy League universities, where I believe 6 out of 8 of them have Jewish presidents. The DOJ is coming down on them. The Department of Ed is coming down on them because they're not pro-Israel Jewish enough. Silicon Valley, the most powerful movers there. From Founders Fund with Joe Lonsdale to Sequoia to you name it, Palantir. It's all Israeli intelligence. They sent them out there to penetrate, to infiltrate. And they increasingly are dominating the DoD defense contracts. They're filling up the National Security Council. They're taking control of the procurement process. Trump was a vessel. Trump branded himself in 2024 as the vengeance of MAGA and America First and mass deportations. In reality, he was the regime candidate. He was the candidate of Wall Street and Silicon Valley, of Israeli intelligence, of the Jewish oligarchs, of the World Jewish Congress. And ultimately, he is sort of an inconvenience. He is a vessel. He is a booster rocket. The payload is Vance. Vance was an artificial creation of Peter Thiel, of Elon Musk, of David Sachs, of the CIA, the American Enterprise Institute, of Netflix and CNN. And in 2028 or before, when he is crowned the president, he is going to bring the New World Order to the fore. Why is no one talking about this? With Rubio, they're going to tell you mass deportations. Then they review 50 million visa applications and look at their Twitter and see if they criticized Israel. They run on frat bro uprising. Then they deploy an anti-Semitism police force to Colombia to make sure no one protests against Israel. They say, we're going to get to the bottom of all of these conspiracies. Then they bury the Epstein files a day before Netanyahu makes his 3rd visit to the White House after they bombed Iran. They bring in Doge to cut the deficit, fail miserably. Doge leaves, and who stays? Palantir. Suddenly, the Social Security Administration, the Treasury Department, the Education Department, the IRS, it's all going into the Palantir database, which is a cutout for the Mossad. Are you getting it yet? They're invading Gaza. They're getting ready for another war with Iran. They're disarming Hezbollah in Lebanon. The president of Syria is an Israeli spy. They're getting ready to annex the West Bank. They're sacrificing the red heifers. Are you starting to understand this yet? They don't want you to watch my show. They will address every aspect of my character and my personality, personal attacks, credibility attacks, reputation attacks. They will never address what I'm saying. As a matter of fact, they won't even clip it because they don't want you to know. They want everybody to look at me and say, oh, that's an untrustworthy figure. Oh, he's effeminate. Oh, well, he's not white. Oh, well, he's a hypocrite. Well, he's a jokester. Because I'm the only one that is and this information, it's all out there. You don't need to trust me. You don't need to like me. The information's out there. Look it up. This is what's happening. And there is such a concerted effort to obfuscate this, to bury this under 50 feet of bullshit Vance memes, to bury it under 50 feet of astroturfed, inorganic, unfunny fucking cat turd memes. You see this clip from J.D. Vance. He's touring the Capitol with Pete Hegseth. The protesters are yelling in his face. Vance turns to Hegseth and says, "Look, that's the guy that doesn't want law and order in our communities." And people are like, dude, Vance is so funny. Dude, that's not fucking funny. And we're supposed to look at that, and that's supposed to be so hilarious that we forget he's a creation of the CIA and the Mossad. We're supposed to forget that Peter Thiel gave him a no-show job at Mithril Capital. Peter Thiel met him at Yale Law School, a notorious breeding ground for the CIA, recruiting ground. And on a whim, after an email exchange, Peter Thiel got him a job in Silicon Valley, then a no-show job at his venture capital firm, where Vance's colleagues said they never saw him, in the office while Vance was out promoting his book. His book that was recommended to him that he should write by David Frum and Amy Chua. And that book, which was promoted at the fucking Aspen Institute and on CNN, and they made a Netflix documentary by Ron Howard that was supposed to make him the president. That book that was supposed to give him the credibility with the white working class to steer them away from nativism and into some kind of moderate, compassionate conservatism. We're supposed to forget all that because he made some dumbass, stupid, fucking unfunny joke with the Fox and Friends host. Fuck you. This is what they don't want you to know. This is what they don't want you to hear. They say, Nick Fuentes is mad at Vance because someone texted me that they had a meeting and he turned him away. They make fan fiction. I'll tell you why I don't want Vance. He's bragging about his biracial family and non-white kids, and that's why he'll never see Americans as being exclusively white. My problem is that he is obviously a cutout for the CIA, Silicon Valley, military, industrial, tech, academic complex. My problem is that he is fat, he is weird, he is not charismatic, he is not one of us. Everything about him is a lie. And in the end, his job is not to deliver for America first. His job is to deliver for his weird oligarchical backers, his weird gay sugar daddy, Peter Thiel, who thinks he's the Antichrist. To deliver for Elon Musk, this immigrant who wants infinite H-1Bs to get us to Mars. To deliver for David Sachs, who even knows who this guy is. Mark Andreessen, who looks like an alien. I don't trust any of these fucking people. I thought the Trump movement was contra these elites. I thought MAGA was against the rootless transnational cosmopolitan elites. Well, who is more of a rootless transnational cosmopolitan elite than Silicon Valley? Than Musk, Thiel, Andreessen Horowitz, Sachs, Helberg. Who is more of a rootless transnational cosmopolitan than them? They're transhumanists, for crying out loud, not even transnational. And we are all being herded like cattle to support this. It's insane. Oh, we're reviewing the visas. Oh, well, good luck with that. They took Dr. Lupus's visa because she criticizes Israel. That's your mass deportations. We're going to leave the illegal farm workers, hospitality workers, construction workers, restaurant workers. They will not be deported. But Dr. Lupus, who criticized Israel on Twitter, well, she's got to go home. Really? You'd have to be an idiot to fall for this. You'd have to be a sucker.
If you haven't figured it out yet, the name of the game is the control of information networks of every sort, of every domain. It's not just controlling the media, it's controlling the infrastructure of how you communicate. It is controlling the school system. It's control over cryptography. It's control over which narratives about your own past are acceptable and which are unacceptable. Your past, the past that your ancestors fought to mold and shape, you have no control over what is and is not the acceptable narrative over the story of your own ancestors at this point. And that list of 20 that I gave you, that was just scratching the surface. We could expand that list to 200. We could expand that list to 2,000. We could dive into each one of those names and discuss in granular detail the specific mechanisms that they use to control all of these information networks. And then take those lessons that you learned and apply them to every single Western nation with a central bank. That's the scale of the game board. So this is the game you're playing. No one asked your permission whether you wanted to play. No one is going to care if you try to opt out. You're in it no matter what. So you might want to get your head in the game and become real good at it real quick. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the content as well as the commentary. Please like, share, and subscribe and help this channel grow.